Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
I'm Hannah Elliott.
And I'm Matt Miller, and this is Hot Pursuit. Coming up on today's podcast, we hear from the Duke of Richmond, formerly the Earl of March, about what has become probably the most important car show in the world.
I had the idea for the Festival Speed and started that in 93. Much to our surprise, we were told a couple of thousand people might turn up. 25,000 people bowled up that first morning. And the thing from then on, we had 250,000 this year come. It was a big thing.
Plus my experience driving a BMW M4 CS and Hannah's latest car review of a Maybach.
I can't wait to talk about all of that coming up on the show. But before we get to your BMW, Matt, we have to talk about the astronomical cost of the average car.
It's actually apropos of your, I think, Mercedes-Maybach review, right?
Very
We're
much
talking about
so.
prices, and the M4 isn't cheap, but what you drove is incredibly expensive.
What I drove is very expensive. It's about $225,000. That's if you buy it outright. This story that you actually brought to my attention, Matt, by Jade Thomas and Keith Naughton, some of our best reporters. The story says that actually 7-year car loans are fast becoming the norm. They're often the only way that buyers can afford new rides, with average sale prices surging 28% in 5 years to approach $50,000. So
that's the average price for a car now.
Yes.
And what you and I drive obviously is often far more expensive to that. In fact, we rarely drive anything that's $50,000. But it's still a very high price for the average car. That's for every normal person, right? Even people who don't care about cars.
Completely. And basically, compared to a 5-year loan, that is the difference between a $1,000 monthly payment and basically like a $780 monthly payment. So that's a lot per month.
Yeah, you can cut your monthly payment 22% if you take the loan out to 7 years. But the other factor is then you end up paying a ton more money in interest. So then your $50,000 car loan, which normally would be like a $65,000 total payment all in, becomes like a $75,000 total car payment all in. So it's, we had written a story last year about how new cars have gotten so expensive that even rich people, essentially, we interviewed a doctor in Miami, we're buying used cars because this guy was like, I was going to get a new lease of the same Mercedes that I leased last time, but it was so expensive that now I'm looking at a used car instead.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point is like people aren't stupid. When you actually add up the numbers and you realize how expensive it is now over the long term, even if your monthly payment is lower, it just feels dumb to be spending that much money, even if you can afford it. You want to make a good decision. And if the minute this car leaves the dealer's lot, it's going to drop precipitously in value, you might as well just get one that's like a year old, right?
It's actually a great argument for buying used cars to begin with. Even if you are a wealthy person who can afford that kind of depreciation, I often think about, what I would do if I'd bought a lot of Bitcoin 10 years ago, or, if I'd invested in Tesla's IPO, or if I had known about NVIDIA's astronomical rise. And I always think it'd be cool to buy, a Range Rover and a supercharged Escalade V, just to see which one's better to live with. Like if you had the money, why not, own both of them? And even when I'm sort of daydreaming about this, I still buy used because even in my daydreams, I don't want the kind of depreciation you get hit with if you buy a new Range Rover.
Completely agree. I mean, I've talked about this before, like ad nauseum. I think if you really want to start saving the world, stop buying new cars, which is ironic considering the line of work we're in. My question is, how do you feel about leasing versus taking a loan out to buy the car?
I mean, I've been thinking about this ever since I understood the concept of leasing, right? And I think, financial news journalists and sort of self-help gurus have been debating this also for the last 20 years. But it really depends on who you are, on what you want to do, on what you want out of the car. And now with EVs, there's a whole new variable, right? So completely. I would probably lease an EV, whereas a lot of internal combustion engines I would buy.
Yes.
Because I don't yet see an EV as a forever car, whereas like my Dodge Challenger, I can keep forever. I'm always going to love it, even as I buy new cars. But if I got like a Rivian, for example, I would want to upgrade that every few years because they're never going to get better than a 6.4 liter Hemi, right? But it is going to get better than whatever battery pack and electric motor you have now.
Completely. The rate of advancement, it's like an iPhone. Like I could lease my iPhone. It really wouldn't matter. It would be all the same to me in the end. And that's kind of how I see the EVs especially. But,
by the way, let's get to the BMW I was driving because this is, I think, a great example of the inline six that BMW makes. They have pretty much perfected it. And it's in the whole range of their performance cars, right? From the M2 up to, certainly the M4 that I drove. The power difference is made by bigger turbochargers or like an electric assist. And speaking of a forever car and kind of reaching the pinnacle of development on ICEs, when we come back, we're going to talk about the BMW that I drove with its inimitable inline six, the M4 CS.
That's up next on Bloomberg Hot Pursuit after this.
All right, so I drove this BMW M4 CS. It's kind of the top of the line performance sports car from BMW. I mean, I don't think that you're going to go to an M8, right? That's more of a GT car. Yeah. And personally, I kept thinking the whole time I would go with an M2, but it's obviously a much smaller and more economical package. This thing was absolutely filthy in every sense of the word except for dirty. There wasn't a speck of dust on it. It was a gorgeous green color, and they have a number of awesome green tones. It's one of my favorite colors for a car, so that's very cool. But it had like tons of exposed carbon fiber. It's a super complex, polarizing design. So everybody who saw it on the street and everybody who passed me on the highway like had something to say about it.
Oh, really? Now, did this have the two-tone hood, like the black? Oh, it did. And it has, of course, the huge beaver tooth grill, which we know is very polarizing.
Right. I mean, I hated it when it first came out, and now I love it.
You can't see it when you're behind the wheel anyway, so honestly, it doesn't matter if the car drives great. Maybe not.
Well, I mean, you can't unsee it after you have. But I think, like with much of BMW's design, when you first see it, you don't like it at all. I think the majority of people don't like. It's
kind of brutal.
A new BMW, and then over time, you grow to love it. You get used to it, whichever it is.
Are you gonna? I was just gonna say, are you saying this is like a perfect daily driver?
No,
I feel
not at all. No,
okay.
Not at all. In fact, so I have the car for a week, right? And the first 3 or 4 days, I'm thinking this car is honestly, it's too fast. It's like scary fast.
Come now.
I know it's
too fast.
It's only got a 543 horsepower motor, but the way it feels is a little bit dangerous. It's still the inline six, which is why I say it's like, a forever car kind of engine, but they put bigger turbochargers on it, and it's all-wheel drive. So
now, all-wheel drive, but isn't there a rear-wheel drive mode?
Yes,
that you can activate. Were you in that?
Yeah, you can put it into rear-wheel bias,
which is even scarier.
Yeah, because you have to turn off basically the traction control.
Sure.
So but even with the traction control on and in all-wheel drive mode, it just feels, it's so fast, it's so quick, and it's like so brutal and loud as well. All right, let's get to the Maybach now because so this is so cool. You drove, I think, the most luxurious version of Mercedes SL Cabriolet, the Sport Leicht. Cabriolet. And I happened to, this was not planned, drive, I think, the sportiest version. I drove the AMG version. So tell us first about your Maybach, starting with the price.
Sure. This is the 2026 Mercedes-Maybach SL 680. It's a convertible. The starting price is $224,900. And basically, this is a Maybach based on the SL, the new Mercedes SL. It's the first two-seater that Maybach has ever done. And, Mercedes says they did it to try to appeal to younger owners. So this is a very expensive car. It's basically an AMG SL 63, but with a Maybach treatment on top of it. What does that Maybach treatment look like? It looks like a lot of logos everywhere on the car. They're like these embossed, basically they look like they're stamped on like a Louis Vuitton bag. Maybach logos all over the hood, all over the soft top, all over the inside of the doors. Plus the interior is bright white. The car is it currently comes standard in only two colorways. You can get black and red or black and white. There are other optional colors that have been added since the debut, but those are the standard colors right now. Comes with some new monoblock wheels, 21-inch. So the changes to this particular car are not performance related. They're aesthetics and cosmetics related, basically. And we've been talking about like Beamer Bros, for instance. I will also say there's a very large element of people who love how this car looked. Of course, when I saw it, I slightly cringed.
It's
because
cringe. It's
cringe.
cringe.
It's a lot of chrome. It's a lot of everything. Like, you don't need everything. You could just have one element and leave. The body of the car is really beautiful, I think. And you don't need everything. You don't need the wheels and the two-tone and the stamping and the chrome and all this stuff. You could just like have one. But that said, as I drove this car from Los Angeles to Carmel and didn't receive any speeding tickets, thank you very much, people loved it. And it might have been a little like how you were with the M4. Everyone wanted to talk about it. Everyone wanted to see it. Probably the people who didn't like it just kept their mouths shut, because everybody who came up to me loved it and wanted to know all about it. And I like that.
I mean, I loved the color of the vehicle. You drove the red one, right? I love that red color.
It's like a claret almost.
The monoblock wheels on the car that you drove are too much. I mean, they're pretty ridiculous.
I have to say, actually, I weirdly liked them. I would weirdly get that car in like a midnight blue, and I would possibly keep the wheels just to be bratty. They're kind of cool.
They make another wheel, which I think looks far better.
They do. The spoke, like multi spokes.
But and the logos. I mean, the whole like Louis Vuitton, the giant polo player or whatever. Like, I'm not down to clown with that. It's too much. It's too much, but it's weird because there's a certain element that love it, and Mercedes knows this. And I do believe they're selling. They are going to start deliveries later this year. They're on sale now. I will say the white interior, like unequivocally, I don't know why anybody would get that. Unless you plan to park the car and never drive it. I couldn't keep it clean for a week. I love it.
I literally put a towel in the footwell so my boots wouldn't get the white carpeting. Yeah. Dirty.
I mean, if you have that much money, it's a $225,000 car. And if you have that kind of cash, I guess you can have it cleaned regularly.
But I don't think it's about the cash. It's about the time lost while the car is being cleaned. You know?
Okay. But you have somebody that does it for you.
I do, I guess, yeah.
So unplanned, I drove the sportiest version of this SL, Super Leicht or Sport Leicht, whatever, cabriolet from Mercedes. I drove the AMG SL 63 SE Performance version, which is the same price as the Maybach that you drove. Mine was $224,800, so still unaffordable for most normal people, right? But it has an electric assist. It has, they say, a permanently excited synchronous electric motor that brings your total horsepower with the twin turbo V8 to 805 and your total torque to over 1,000 foot-pounds of torque, 1,047 foot-pounds of torque.
So that's more than mine, because mine was about 577.
Right, so you get the logos, and mine gets the power. But unlike the BMW M4 that I drove, and obviously no one's cross-shopping these two, it wasn't terrifying. It felt so refined, and it's so planted and the steering is so precise without being like twitchy that I think it's the best driving convertible I've ever driven, ever.
Does that go ahead of any sort of 911 convertibles?
Well, I haven't driven many 911 convertibles, right? Okay. I mean, I had a 991 and I've driven the 992s, and I mean, they're pretty amazing, but this I like. Yes. I like better. Now I haven't driven a turbo, for example.
But for our purposes here, you loved it because it was so refined.
And the other thing is like, so a 911 is the instant. It's like, you know, what you would cross shop against this, I guess, because same price
at the moment,
a turbo
could change.
But
sure.
They just seem more a dime a dozen than these.
I know.
You just don't see that many SLs. And also, like, it's so luxurious. I love the leather inside. I love the wood trim, and it's got these pinstripes that are actually like raised metal.
Yes.
Yeah. The screens are screens. It's like highly technological, but they're not too much. It's not overkill. And they work perfectly, and they're so intuitive.
Seamless.
I was trying to think on the way to work this morning what my complaints would be, other than the price, right? I'm never going to, a 225, I mean, it might as well be an Aston Martin or a Ferrari, honestly, when you get to that level. But other than that, my only complaint is that it's a little cramped for somebody who's 6'3".
In the legs or the headroom?
The legs.
Yeah, because I thought the headroom was actually pretty good, but you mean like leg-wise?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all leg, and I had the car I had the seat as far back as I could get it. And I just feel like at this price point, you could add a couple inches in the cockpit. But maybe, and I was going to ask you about this, maybe they want to remind the buyer of a 300 SL. Like maybe they're trying to keep that feeling. And the door sills are kind of high, not obviously old school SL high, but
they are.
I've never driven a 300 SL, but I've sat in one or a few. And I got kind of the same feeling. You have to climb into the cockpit, and you feel like an athlete when you're driving this.
Yes.
It feels like a sports car. So I just think I can't say enough good about it, actually. It's amazing. If I had the money, I would buy one.
Well, I agree. I, as someone who used to own an SL, I had a 560 when I first moved to Los Angeles. I love the heritage of the SL line from the Gullwings, and I've done rallies in the Gullwings before. I've owned an SL from an 88, and now this. Obviously, this really isn't close at all to the SLs of the past, but you're right in the way that the seat orientation is inside, and I felt that same way in the Maybach. I was in the car. The car was like, I put on the car like a coat over my shoulders, and I felt very hugged and embraced by the car. Not that it was stifling at all, but it just felt very comforting. And this is where it starts to sound woo-woo. But it's true. There's something about the way the seat is positioned and you're in it. You're not, I hate feeling like you're on top of something and you're just like driving a skateboard.
I'm Matt Miller along with Hannah Elliott. You're listening to Hot Pursuit. We have more coming up after this.
So we're going to talk with Charles Richmond, who is the 11th Duke of Richmond. You might have heard of Goodwood. He is the person who owns Goodwood, the man behind him. He actually succeeded his father as chairman of the Goodwood Estate in 1994 after a career as a photographer. So he is truly born and bred all things automotive in the best British proper sense. He's actually even earned a CBE for his contributions in that area, and we are so happy to have him joining us.
Now, I believe we shall address His Excellency as my Lord Duke.
I think Charles will be fine.
It's really very cool to have you here because we talk about this is a weekly podcast, and we tend towards the finer things in life. So we talk about Goodwood quite a bit on this program. And I was really thrilled when Hannah told me she'd managed to secure an interview with you. So thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. No, I'm delighted to be involved.
So, Goodwood coming up next month. It's one of the premier events for, if not the premier event for car lovers around the world. Tell us and our listeners who aren't familiar with it exactly how you got started, because Goodwood is steeped in automotive history.
Yeah, we're obviously talking about the Goodwood Revival. So there are a number of things that go on here. Festival of Speed's another one. But the Revival is very much, very much part of the whole story. And so my grandfather, Freddie, was a racing driver before the war, the 1930s, and he allowed the RAF to turn one of the farms here at Goodwood into a Battle of Britain airfield at the beginning of the war. And in order to do that, they built a perimeter track around this airfield, which is so often what happened with those sort of satellite airfields around southern England. It was a very busy airfield. It was very busy in the war. Douglas Bader, some great, really, really great pilots flew from here, and it was a very busy, active airfield. And after the war, a young Australian pilot who also became a very successful driver called Tony Gaze, he suggested to my grandfather this perimeter track they'd built around the airfield would make a great racetrack, because all the young pilots had been tearing around it when they were not flying their Spitfires. And so he looked at it. He got John Cooper down. They had to go around it. They went the other way to start with. They went the opposite way around. Anyway, they decided to make a great racetrack. And in September 1948, they had their very first meeting, and that was the first race meeting to open after the war. And it was always Easter Monday. It was the first big race meeting of the year. It was very social. All the great teams were here. All the great drivers were here. And I used to come as a small boy, and I was horrified in 1966 when my grandfather decided, for all sorts of personal reasons, he was going to shut it down. And I was very disappointed. And so I kind of vowed one day we'd try and get it going again. And when I came back to live at Goodwood in the early 90s, that was something that I looked at very early on. It was all collapsed, fallen down. It was used for a bit of testing, but the buildings had all gone, and the airfield was still busy in the middle of it. And we immediately started to sort of make inquiries with the local authority, the local government, about how we could get this going again, and we met a wall of resistance. So that looked like it was going to be very, very challenging. And eventually it looked pretty impossible.
I was just going to ask, for people who haven't been to the Festival of Speed or Revival, can you kind of explain the difference? Obviously, Revival is very period correct, both for the people who are attending and for the cars and for the races. Festival of Speed at this point seems like a huge, massive car show with new cars going up the hill. Can you kind of say, okay, if you're a certain person, go to Festival of Speed. If you're another kind of person, go to Revival. It's because they're very different.
Well, they're very, very different. So, yeah, the Festival of Speed is 4 days. It's a celebration of the motor car in all its forms, and it celebrates the past, present, and the future. Future is really important too. It's the cars are driven in front of the house on this piece of road. They go up this hill. It's 1.1 mile length, and the big difference is they go one at a time. And some of them are demonstration only. Some of them are being extremely competitive. And you see an F1 car at full chat on a piece of road that's only a few meters wide in front of the house. It's hairy. I mean, those first years, everyone was so shocked. It was literally a string line. You'd be standing there, there's just a piece of string across, and I was going, my God, this is, as a McLaren went past you. So it became a thing, and it's it really is a celebration and a sort of joy of mobility, and it's turned into all of that. And the manufacturers got involved very quickly. They got super enthusiastic about it. So we were very, every major manufacturer in the world, one way or another, has been involved, and most of them still are. And there are no motor shows in the world now either, really. So we're a kind of the answer to the motor show, and it's dynamic, so then people can actually see the car moving. So we had lots. I don't know how many launches. We have 12 major launches this year or something. From cars, from mass production cars to hypercars to every sort of thing. And there's very little opportunity now for manufacturers. They can launch cars digitally, which became quite fashionable for a while. But I think after again, they felt, well, it's not really the same as doing. They need to do it live, but also send those messages around the world at the same time. So I think we offer an interesting platform for that. And it's just a really big shared experience. Everyone here is a massive, car. They're massive enthusiasts. They're total, they're so into it.
I want to finally ask about the Revival. Obviously, the cars are the main attraction, and the planes in the morning would be fantastic. And I imagine you have some amazing motorcycles there as well. But for many people, dressing up to the period and bringing period gear must also be just as much fun. And we know where to get all the cars. Hannah writes about that. That's her day job. But where does one properly outfit himself for this event? I mean, is there a clothier near Goodwood or someone in London that you would recommend?
Well, that's a very good question, actually. But one thing is vintage is important, and real vintage is important. The real ethos of the event is around revive and thrive. So it's what we call it. So it's about, buy the best, made to last. Secondhand's really a good thing. Hand things on, and look after things. I mean, for instance, it's just worth mentioning, all the cars, it's the only motorsport event in the world where all the cars are mandated on synthetic fuel. So they're all running synthetic fuel. So the whole sustainability thing is an important part of the event, and that's an important part of what you wear. But we're not saying it has to be vintage. We're saying, if it's beautifully made, properly tailored, and it's going to last, and that's fine. You could just get a great hat. You go to Locks and St James's and buy a great hat in London. You could go to Portobello, where all the secondhand shops are, and get some great secondhand kit. But you don't. People do it by degrees, and you can go online, obviously, Etsy and all those sites. They've got great vintage. So that world's been transformed. I mean, the fact you can buy it all online now is fabulous. And there are still a few secondhand shops around, but probably Portobello's the best, especially for girls stuff. Some very serious collectors. I mean, people were very tiny then. That's another slight challenge. They were much smaller. But there's a whole mass of vintage shops at Revival itself. And we've got our, Dieter Von Teese and Dandy Wellington and all these people here coming here to, talk about vintage and talk about the whole sort of lifestyle of vintage. And they just live it. These people live the whole thing completely. So it's a very important part of the event. And we've got 80 hairdressers on site or something. Everyone's, the whole hair and makeup thing. It's amazing.
I love that.
And people look absolutely, so they arrive really early, they get their hair done. They arrive in a lovely old Aston Martin, they get their hair done, everyone gets ready, have a fabulous breakfast, bottle of champagne, they're ready to go.
Matt,
what more could you want?
We need to make this happen, Matt.
Agreed.
I'm there. Like I said, I've been to Festival of Speed, but Revival, I actually hear is really the jewel.
We'll organise if you're coming. Matt said you were coming earlier. Are you?
I hope so. I hope.
Now I'd like to change. Now I'd like to change my plans and come as well. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like the most.
I have family in England.
Delicious event. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us, Your Grace. It was truly a pleasure. At Bloomberg.net.
And check out Hannah's columns and stories on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg Business app and the Bloomberg Terminal. Go there for car reviews, events, and stories that you won't find anywhere else. Find it all at Bloomberg.com/pursuits/autos. I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott. We'll be back in your podcast feed again next week.